All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Business License Commission meeting. I would like to call our Business License Commission meeting is now called to order. And as we normally do, we begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood, is occupied, unceded, seized territory from the Gabrieleño, Tongva, and Gabrieleño Keys people. Will you all join me as we do the Pledge of Allegiance? Please stand. Face the flag, pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Thank you. May I please get a roll call, Secretary?
Commissioner Eisenberg.
Here.
Commissioner Ng.
Here.
Commissioner Heng.
Here.
Commissioner Lowe. Absent. Commissioner Saltzman.
Here.
Commissioner Yusupov. Absent. Chair Villan.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. And the fourth item is to approval of the agenda. I'd like to approve tonight's agenda of Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move we approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Saltzman and second by Eisenberg, Commissioner Eisenberg. Can we please get a roll call?
Commissioner Eisenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Ng.
Aye.
Commissioner Heng. Commissioner Saltzman.
Aye.
Vice Chair Villan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And item number 5, approval of minutes. I'd like to approve the minutes of the previous meeting on Tuesday, September 13th. Are there any changes to the minutes from Tuesday, September 13th? I need some water tonight. Secretary, are there any changes on your side?
No, they're not. And let the record reflect that Commissioner Yusupov has joined the meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 13th, 2022?
Move we approve the minutes.
In a second. Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Saltzman and a second by Commissioner Eisenberg. May I please get another roll call, Secretary?
Commissioner Eisenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Ng.
Aye.
Commissioner Heng.
I wasn't here, so I'll abstain from it.
Abstain. Commissioner Saltzman.
Aye.
Commissioner Yusupov.
Aye.
Chair Villan.
Aye.
Item has approved.
Thank you. Item number 6, public comment. This is time that's set aside for members of the public to address the West Hollywood Business License Commission on consent calendar items or items in the general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. This is not the public comment period for any public hearings on the agenda. Public comment for public hearings will occur at the time of the hearing, though we have no hearings tonight. There will also be general public comments later in the meeting in case anyone misses that at this time. Do we have any speakers at this time?
No, we don't, Chair.
Thank you. And item number 7 is public hearings. We don't have any tonight, correct? Okay, great.
Not having
So
any hearings.
we will move on to item number 8 with unfinished business, an update on the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health and city executive orders and items related to business. Is there a staff report?
Hi, good evening. This is Jessica. Just to report that LA County Health Department has amended the health officer order, and pretty much it amended the masking requirements to no longer require this. And public transit and indoor transportation hubs such as airport, taxis, the revision excludes indoor settings such as correctional facilities, homeless shelters, and also healthcare settings. In addition to that, the county reported that as of September 23rd, there have been 10,275 COVID cases, which is 1% increase from last month. Also, they report that there has been an increase of vaccination of 1.11% in the city of West Hollywood, and they reported that one commercial establishment with more than 3 confirmed COVID cases shows in their shows on the city's the county's website. And now moving to the monkeypox, the LA County reports 839 confirmed positive cases, which is a 20% increase since last month's report. And they reported that they have been administered 27,177 first doses in the LA metro area. They haven't divided the vaccinations per city, like West Hollywood and the Highland area and downtown LA. Still, they're reporting as the LA metro area. And unfortunately, they reported one death in the LA County. They did not provide any further information as to which area of LA County. And LA County has 88 cities. Thank you, and that concludes my update. Thank you much.
Thank you. And item number 9 is new business. We have an election tonight for vice chair. Our city clerk, Melissa Crowder, will now facilitate the nomination and election of our vice chair for the Business License Commission.
Actually, Chair, you all have the pleasure of myself actually providing the nomination, as our city clerk was unfortunately not available. And so at this time, if we can open up nominations of vice chair with the commission, now would be the time to do so.
Are there any nominations?
Nominate Commissioner Eisenberg.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Second that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations?
If there are no other nominations, then congratulations, Commissioner Eisenberg. You are nominated and elected vice chair.
Congratulations. And our second item of new business is due diligence for cannabis applications.
Chair, before we move on to the next item, we'd like to have a roll call for this new election.
Sure.
You don't. You don't need it because there was only one nomination. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'd be fine.
All right.
Okay, we can move on.
Sounds good. Congratulations. Okay, second item then. Is there a staff report on the due diligence for cannabis applications?
There is, yes. And I do see Commissioner Lowe is attending, so maybe we'll wait a couple of seconds here. Welcome, Commissioner Lowe. And please note for the record that Commissioner Lowe is now present for the Business License Commission meeting. So yes, there is a staff report. Keep it very short. However, this is in follow-up to the Commission's direction in August of this year. Myself, Danny Rivas here, Director of Community Safety for the City of West Hollywood, as well as John Leonard, Director of Economic Development. You have Jessica Benitez, our Code Enforcement Supervisor, and David King, our Deputy City Attorney, are all available to answer any questions once we conclude with the short presentation. But in short, we did meet and confer with the City Attorney's Office, obviously following the direction that we received from the Business License Commission. And the findings and conclusion of that review is that the city maintained its existing standards as reflected in the West Hollywood Municipal Code. There are a number of reasons that are outlined in the staff report, and I just wanted to provide just a couple of those examples, and of course, at the end, open it up to any questions that the Commission may have. But the determination to maintain existing standards is based on a number of factors, which was also touched on by our Deputy City Attorney, David King, in the last two meetings. In short, what the decision was based off of is that the city should not be taking into consideration private civil litigation matters for which the city does not have all of the facts, and which may not be relevant to the licensing findings, and for which a court of law may not have issued its final legal determination. There are many instances, obviously, where civil cases take quite some time in terms to resolve. Some of the other aspects that are reflected here is that it is difficult to obtain solid facts or determine the merit of a civil lawsuit, given that most civil cases are settled monetarily and without having to go to trial, and generally involve non-disclosure stipulations. So meaning that once they're settled, both parties are incapable of really kind of speaking to the details of their case or what the settlement agreement and negotiations were as a part of that settlement. In addition to that, it would also be legally challenging to make a finding that a civil matter filed against the business demonstrates that the business is incapable of successfully and safely operating their business in accordance with West Hollywood rules and regulations. So again, kind of pointing to our existing standards in the municipal code. There are 3 sections of the municipal code reflected in the staff report that were reviewed as a part of this. Obviously, the concern was the variance request that was brought forth by the commission, but there was also staff and city attorney's office taking a look at just the more or less the overall general application review process and the set criteria involved in that review. So all of that was looked at, and again, those code sections are specifically reflected and depicted in the staff report. The spirit and intent of the city's existing cannabis business license ordinance is to follow objective and fact-based criteria, which is the reason why you're seeing those specific details outlined in the municipal code. John Leonard can certainly add to the history, being the lead as it relates to the cannabis ordinance and the program itself. But there was a lot of public involvement and significant, obviously, input as well from the city council in terms of establishing the set criteria that's in place. And then also mentioned in the past, in terms of some of the commission meetings when this has come up, that most recently, when I say recent, not meaning this year, but last year there was a settlement agreement between the city and many of the stakeholders, them being the cannabis businesses that were in operation, did settle, and the language specifically that's outlined currently in the assignment of licenses, the variance request, all of that was settled and agreed upon by all parties. So that adds just another layer in terms of complexity should this be revisited. And I think Mr. Leonard had touched on that at the last commission meeting in terms of saying that it doesn't mean that you can't revisit it, but again, it opens up another whole set of obstacles in terms of revisiting that. And then, as a part of this discussion, we certainly, as a team, looked at, what could we be doing better at the staff level, right, in terms of our due diligence, and some of the things we had mentioned already in the past too, in terms of staff reaching out to all of the jurisdictional bodies that an applicant has a license with, both at a local level as well as the state level. And so, communicating with those different, whether it's the code enforcement department or any other department that issues those licenses, getting an understanding and learning of any compliance related issues. So that is something that staff has recently began doing and that we'll continue to do. And then we'll even reflect that in a section of our staff reports moving forward in terms of just notating due diligence. And if there are any issues that we learn of, then of course reporting that to the commission as a whole. Right now we are in communication with the California Department of Cannabis Control that oversees the state licensing aspects of any applicant, right, that's legally capable of operating here in the city of West Hollywood. And that is a requirement as a part of every license holder. And so we're working to communicate with them to try to, again, look at any other viable options of information maybe that we're unaware of that they could possibly share with us. And so we're reaching out to them, and we're trying to see if there is some way of us getting any other additional information that we would be capable of sharing with the commission to give you all a complete picture, right, of what's coming before you. And so we'll begin to do that in terms of doing the due diligence, reaching out to different cities, continuing that practice. And then, of course, if there's any additional information that the state provides us, we'll report back to the commission as well. So in short, that concludes the staff's presentation. Again, happy to answer any questions between John Leonard, David King, Jessica, and myself.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a really important topic that obviously has come up quite a bit recently. Is there any questions or comments from any commissioners? Commissioner Hunk?
Is there a county entity that oversees cannabis as well, or is it just limited to the state?
It is just limited to the state. I mean, there is a department at the county level, but they deal with all the unincorporated areas. So if there's any issues that they're having, but yeah, it's up to each incorporated city and then working with the state agency. Yeah.
Commissioner Ing?
I have a question, but it may be more relevant for the comment portion. But Commissioner Lowe had requested the update, status update, and I wanted to ask if we had any information on what cannabis tax has been generated. I listened to a city council and WeHo chamber hosted a State of the City forum in June of 2021, in which David Wilson stated that projected tax revenue would be $5.5 million when all of the businesses were up and running. And I'm wondering if we have any report from the past few years of what they're currently generating now, or if that's accessible to us.
I'll defer to John Leonard.
So you're going to test my memory a little bit. So we recently put this in one of our updates to the City Council, and we're happy to provide that update to the commissioners as well. I believe that our annual tax receipts from cannabis were about 2.5. So we're about halfway there. Certainly, there are not half of the businesses open at this point. The 5.5 was an estimate that was in the ballot measure when the cannabis tax was approved, and that was estimating that all the locations would be open. But there are a number of locations in the city that we see good receipts from. So I think we're on track to get to that at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding Mr. Rivas's report? Okay. I think the only thing I would maybe add is with the due diligence, just as a reminder, when you do find out anything, get it to us as soon as possible so we have time to review. So if you find out, a week or 2 weeks before the meeting, that would be great to be able to receive that instead of 1 or 2 days before the meeting.
Yeah, most certainly. And, when we provide that information, we have to provide it to the entire commission. And so we'll definitely work at getting the staff reports, specifically for the cannabis hearings that are going before you all more in advance of the meeting to allow sufficient time to review. So, yes.
Great. Thank you. All right. And item number 10 is staff report. I think we're going back to you, sir.
We are. Yeah, so congratulations again, Commissioner Eisenberg, for being vice chair. I'll get used to saying vice chair Volin and vice chair Eisenberg, so congratulations with that nomination and election. Looking ahead at the calendar, I know for the month of November, I was about to say October, and we're in October, and then December, we are anticipating that we might have one additional hearing, uncertain yet. I think there's some information still that we're waiting on to come before the city to process that. And then we're also looking at an appeal on a massage technician license, so unassociated with cannabis. And so we have an applicant that's looking to appeal to the commission in terms of staff's decision. So aside from that, obviously we do provide our monthly health officer order updates. I know in the past we kind of had a discussion with the previous commission in terms of whether or not we wanted to continue to provide those updates on a monthly basis. In many instances that may just be be the only item on the agenda. Certainly happy to continue to have the team put together that information if the commission feels that information should be continue to be provided. But I just wanted to check in and get some input from the commission as it relates to that. And then lastly, we have a couple of community safety trainings that are open to the community. I wanted to invite all of the commission here and also ask that you share this information with your neighbors that may be interested in terms of participating. But starting next week, we are going to have our community academy with our West Hollywood Sheriff Station. So this is a program that our West Hollywood Sheriff Station personnel puts on. They have a number of different instructors that come in from different departments and bureaus of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and it's really to give folks an overview of how the West Hollywood Sheriff Station operates, from their patrol operations to dealing with mental health and homeless related issues, being aware of certain security aspects, even for your own personal experience of knowing what to look for, et cetera, and kind of having obviously more expectation of how they handle calls, and just getting to know the services that they provide. So it is a commitment. It's 6 weeks. So it begins next Wednesday on the 12th, and then 5 Wednesdays after that. It will be held here at the West Hollywood Park, but folks do need to register in advance. And if there's commissioner or even one of your neighbors that maybe can't make all 6, but can maybe make 5, then I would certainly still try to participate and sign up for it. And so we're trying to get as many folks involved in that, and there's only 25 spots available right now. So we do have folks that have been submitting interest. We've sent this out to the neighborhood associations and resident associations. We've also invited the Public Safety Commission as well, and our city council. So I wanted to extend that invitation here. Again, we'll forward you all the email. And again, if you have neighbors and folks, obviously, that are here, residents, that are looking to participate, please forward that on to them as well. And then that same week, not on Wednesday, but on Saturday, we have the Circ Training by our Los Angeles County Fire Department. So completely different training, and that training involves providing you with tips and techniques as it relates to emergency preparedness. And so again, just kind of setting those expectations, giving folks the information they need. Should there be a disaster, many instances, public safety resources are going to be stretched thin, and they may not be able to respond. So this gives folks, again, that knowledge, right, to be able to know how to help themselves, how to help their neighbors. It's an excellent training. I've gone through it in the past, many, many years ago. I look forward to actually taking it again here, and that will be a commitment of just 3 Saturdays. So it begins on August 15th, and then the following Saturday, the 22nd, and then it'll conclude on the 29th. So again, we'll forward you that email. It'll be a separate email. There's registration process as well. 25 spaces are available, and those spots are filling up pretty quickly. So that concludes my my updates. But again, if I could maybe get a check-in and some input from the commission on whether or not you'd want to continue moving forward with the monthly updates on the health officer order, that'd be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. And question on the time for the Wednesday, Sheriff, and when is that? Every Wednesday for 6 weeks, from when to when?
Great question, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I don't think it's going to go the full distance till 8, but that's the time block that we have. But definitely we'll start at 5 and we'll end somewhere near around 8 p.m.
Okay, great. And then back to the public health reports that we've been getting monthly. How do you feel, commissioners, as continuing that, doing it quarterly, monthly? Commissioner Saltzman.
My opinion would be we should continue to get the reports. We may not need them monthly, maybe quarterly, but I do think COVID is going to be with us for a while, and monkeypox as well. And I think that we're playing an important role in spreading the information that we have about it. So my own view would be that we would continue to get it. If it's the only thing on the agenda, I wouldn't think we would need to have a meeting. We get a written report. But I think it's important to continue to get the reports.
Any other comments, thoughts?
I agree, and I think actually with monkeypox, I think it makes it more relevant. I mean, maybe people aren't as concerned with COVID right now, but it seems like monkeypox is something affecting the city.
Yeah.
Also, the vaccination rate seems really low. If we're talking about the entire county, 27,000 sounds really low to me.
It's only reported, the number that I provided, it's only reported for the LA metro area, which includes the 4 cities, yeah, compared to, I think it was about 47,000. So it's about 50% that the concentration is going into this particular area. Thank you.
I read that the state has a 70% vaccination rate. Is that the same for LA County, or do you know?
No, that's separate. This is the data that we're obtaining. This is from the LA County's website. So I'm not checking from the state of California, just from the LA County. That the city of West Hollywood is belongs to for our citizens.
Yeah, it was surprising to hear that the numbers went up for monkeypox 20% since last month, so it's still growing pretty quickly. Any other thoughts on how?
Yeah, I'd
often
like
we should
to.
have-
I agree that we need to continue receiving reports, but as far as frequency, maybe we can do it bi-monthly or quarterly, as suggested. So.
Okay.
I
so
think that's good. I think bi-monthly puts us right in between monthly and quarterly. I think
Start with that.
That's probably good.
Okay. Does anyone have any other opinion, or is bi-monthly okay for now? Sounds fair, and then we can push it off more if we need to. Okay. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely great, yeah. So bi-monthly, looks like we have consensus, so we'll make sure, not next month, but in December, right? And then we'll put it on every 2 months. So,
Great.
yeah, great, thank you.
We'll keep evaluating. Thank you. Okay. Section number 11 is public comment. So again, time is set aside. Has anybody else come onto the call or here that wants to speak in public comment that didn't have a chance earlier?
No, we don't.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And item number 11, items from commissioners. Items presented at this time can not be acted upon, but may be referred to city staff to report on or to possibly put on a future agenda. Are there any non-agenda items for any commissioners to bring up or talk about? Yes, Commissioner Ng.
Commissioner Yusupov go first. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I will start with making everyone aware that Small Business Saturday is next month. I'm not sure if city staff is aware if the WeHo Chamber or City Council have proposed anything in support of Small Business Saturday, but I wanted to make us all aware of that. And if there is anything, hopefully the Commission can support those efforts. And then secondly, the Social Justice Task Force released their report, which I'm sure city staff is aware of. I'd like to make the Commission and listening public aware that they will be presenting their report before City Council at the next meeting, which is the 17th. In the report are 5 recommendations for economic development and 2 public safety, or 2 items falling under public safety that identify the need for legal services in support of nonviolent cannabis and sex worker offenses that I thought were noteworthy. And in case people are not aware, sex workers do pay tax, but they were not eligible for any PPP loans or support, which seems unfair to me. The report is available on the WeHo City website, and again, it will be presented by the task force on the 17th. And that's it.
Okay. Commissioner Yusupov?
Yeah, I have a question. So I was talking to some of the store owners along Santa Monica Boulevard, and some of them had asked me if there's a standard for whatever the signage and the type of advertisement they can put on the storefronts, and some of them were complaining about past fines, but it seemed like they weren't aware of if there was a clear guidelines what they can do and cannot, and they were mentioning that the other stores have it. We got punished for that. So my question is, do we have those guidelines? And the second question, is that something in the purview of our commission to maybe update those guidelines or even review them?
Yeah, so great question. So we do have standards, sign standards that have been in place since the city's inception. So that when we have, just to kind of give the commission a little bit of background in terms of kind of the process from a code enforcement perspective, if staff does receive a complaint, which I would say 9 out of 10 times is the instance or the case where somebody will complain about a specific business having a sign that they believe is not in compliance, right, with the West Hollywood Municipal Code. So that code enforcement officer will go out there, generally make contact with the business representative, bringing to their attention whatever issues, right, that they're observing that are not in conformance, and they will be issued a notice. They are provided verbal education. Initially, they will be provided a warning notice. That's not a fine. There's nothing attached to that, but it does bring to their attention. It provides the specific code section in the West Hollywood Municipal Code, and it explains exactly what it is that they need to do. And so in terms of anybody that may have a sign that's not in compliance, then we always refer them over to our planning division. So in terms of purview, it is not within the Business License Commission to look at zoning standards. That's under the purview of the Planning Commission because the zoning ordinance falls under the Planning Division. But if there are representatives of businesses that are speaking to you, I would encourage you to forward them over, connect them to Jessica or myself, and we'll be more than happy to kind of walk them through, kind of take a look at the case. But just so the commission knows, we never immediately issue fines. It's always an educational approach, giving them an advance warning, right, before fines are levied against a business. That's really a last resort. It rarely happens when it comes to businesses and signage because it's a pretty straightforward and easy thing to do. But in many instances, you'll have situations where somebody doesn't agree with the standards or maybe doesn't want to follow or go through the steps involved that Planning Division is explaining to them. And so ultimately, there comes a time in that case, right, where the code enforcement officer has to continue. And ultimately, that means them going to the next step after a warning notice has been issued, which will result in a fine. But again, most cases don't result in that, but there is a set standard. And it's not just here in West Hollywood. I can just tell you, working for other cities, every city has sign standards, and they're all included in the zoning ordinance.
And so actually following on that, I noticed some of the cities, they have more uniform business fronts. And I'm assuming they achieved that over the years by giving strict requirements. Is there any plan to do that in the city, maybe with the new businesses, so it becomes a little bit more uniform versus being so all over the place?
Yeah. And really the flexibility, we've started to see that this is becoming a little bit of an issue. We were very flexible during the pandemic. When businesses were shut down, there was an emergency order that was brought forward to the council and adopted that allowed businesses to be able to advertise outside of what we usually would have been capable of addressing. And so now, though, as businesses have started to open and reopen for some time, businesses are seeing that, right? And they're starting to get a little too loose. And so City Council actually discussed this a couple of months back. And so the plan is the beginning of next year for code enforcement to be a little more proactive as much as possible in terms of visiting businesses. But the plan is before the beginning of the year, we're going to be doing outreach, letting businesses know. I'll give you a couple of examples that you probably see around town. Any signage that you are seeing that's placed out in the public right-of-way, is actually prohibited in the city's municipal code. It always has been, but again, that's something that the city was a little bit flexible on. I mean, we've seen the temporary outdoor dining areas, right? The restaurants expanding onto the sidewalks, into the streets, et cetera, right? That was also allowed. So there were a lot of things that were that the city took into account, and we're trying to help work in partnership with the businesses on. But it is definitely something that we're planning to be a little more proactive, and I don't want to say strict, but just kind of reconforming back to the standards, right, and getting everybody used to the way that the sign ordinance was intended to be. So.
And so I'm assuming also if there's certain business that keeps violating the rules, it's again code enforcement issue. So it's not a purview of our commission to review their license or anything like that, right? It's just a code enforcement issue, and they just, regardless of number of instances of violations, right?
That is correct, yeah. The Business License Commission purview is to provide recommendations, right, and to get involved with hearings that are required under the business license ordinance. But we have many ordinances, many titles, many chapters, and so the sign ordinance lives within the zoning section of our municipal code, so that falls outside of the Business License Commission. So, code enforcement deals not just with business license or with sign issues, they deal with pretty much everything: property maintenance, vacant properties, illegal construction, health and safety code related issues. It goes on and on. So there are a lot of different chapters that code enforcement officers cite. That does not fall within the purview of the Business License Commission in terms of getting involved or providing recommendations on that. But we're more than happy, of course, to, if you're having or hearing or having an issue or hearing an issue from a business or even your neighbor, or it could be a resident, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Jessica. We can definitely look into that code enforcement case and connect with that person and try to assist them as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other items from commissioners? Oh, yep, go ahead, Commissioner.
I know it's not in our purview, but can you explain the Rocco's signage? I know that they're advertising diesel.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is something that is covered under a special event permit. So our Neighborhood and Business Safety Division, which code enforcement lives under, that umbrella also is responsible for issuing special event permits as well as business licenses, right? And so when a business wants to advertise outside of what they normally would be allowed to, and that's a great example, Commissioner Hang, then what they would need to do is they would need to come to the Neighborhood and Business Safety Division, apply for a special event permit, and that allows folks to advertise or even have a different type of business activities that, again, they wouldn't normally be allowed to do for a short period of time. And so that is currently covered under a special event permit. But even kind of going on a tangent and getting a little separate, if you have a retail business that maybe wants to have a DJ, maybe they're doing a special event, maybe they want to have some alcohol drinks that they're providing to their guests, some food, right? They're not allowed, they're not a restaurant, right? They're not approved for that, but they would follow that same process. They would file for a special event permit. Doesn't mean that they're going to get approved for everything that they're proposing, but we would look at the impacts, right? The noise level, the hours of operation, and we would set conditions no differently than we would on an advertisement, but it's always on a temporary basis, very short term.
Okay, is there any other items from commissioners? All right, and at this time, the West Hollywood Business License Commission will adjourn to its next regular meeting, which will be Tuesday, November 1st, 2022 at 6 p.m. right here in the West Hollywood Public Meeting Room, Council Chambers at 625 North San Vicente Boulevard, West Hollywood, California. Have a good evening.